Today on Locked On Canadiens, it is Patrik Laine's world, and the rest of us are just fortunate enough to live in it.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1210 of Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today on Locked On Canadiens, we're going to talk about the week that was, the week that's coming, and some Matvei Michkov information that should put a lot of talk to bed. And here to do that, I am one of your hosts. My name is Laura Sab, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian. Ian, it's holiday week. We are chilling. We are happy. Patrik Laine is he's Santa Claus, I'm going to say. How are you doing this week?
Great. This is the first time in the history of our weekly recap and forecast format where the Canadiens have a perfect week and we get to talk about a perfect week. Like it's like, what else could I say? It's great.
I don't know what to do with myself. I don't even know how to talk about this. We are like this. Okay, this first segment is going to be really packed because there's 2 Detroit games we want to talk about, and obviously just go over the week as a whole. And then we've got a very strange week coming up with the holiday break, and later on we are going to talk Matvei Michkov and Montreal and. But let's start with the Detroit home and home series. I'm gonna confess to you, Ian, and I'm gonna be very honest. I really did think that they were going to lose both games. I thought this was a thing where I looked at those 2 games. I said Montreal should win those games. And then I said, and that's why they won't.
Yeah. And I think it's a perfectly fine standard of the Habs fan coming into this game, having seen what we've seen from them over the last year or so, or 3 years, if you want to go back that far. These were trap games, if there ever were any, right? I said, after they won the first one, going into the second one where they could win 3 in a row for the first time since March, I said, I want to see a team who understands what's in front of them, who understands that they can go out there and put together a win streak for the first time this season. And it didn't start that way in the second game. At least they gave up the first goal, but they left the first period with a lead. Right? Like they rallied. That did not destroy them like we've seen it destroy Canadiens games in the past. I did think it was interesting this season going into games where the Canadiens can win 3 in a row. They were obviously 0-3. One of those was the 8-2 loss to Seattle. One of those was the 6-2 loss to Vegas, and the other was the 4-3 loss to Washington, or 4-2. Either way, they had a lead going into the third period. It was 4-2. And they had a lead going into the third period and blew it. So like 3 very bad games of different reasons, but bad games. And this time they actually managed to do it. They managed to get that win streak going. And I think it's going to, we'll see how long it lasts, looking ahead at the schedule, which we'll talk about in the weekly forecast. But it feels good to have them string together some wins.
Absolutely. And I do want to note as well, I did say, obviously, it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek talking about it's Patrik Laine's world, right? Earlier, we saw that Patrik Laine was the reason for the win, right? Hat trick, dominant. And so, particularly in the second Detroit win, I felt it was more of a team effort, right? Martin St. Louis himself said there weren't any passengers. And I think that's really, really key, is that you cannot have everything flow through one player. We've seen it in the past where, the Canadiens would only have Cole Caulfield scoring goals, for example, or something like that. And I think this is like the idea that Laine is elevating everyone else's game, I think does hold a little bit of truth to it. But at the same time, I don't think that this was, and we are going to talk about obviously our new addition in a second, because I have some nice things to say about that too. But I think that this kind of makes it clear is that these players, it's not a lack of desire or motivation, it's an inability to execute, right? And I think the last couple of games makes it clear because when things are falling into place correctly, they are managing to pull out the wins. Like I'm not seeing necessarily like the Martin St. Louis term is passengers. Like, and we talk a lot about that trope of like throwing up all over themselves in the third period.
Yeah.
It's never because they are trying or trying to fail or being lazy. It's always because they have no idea what they're doing out there, right?
Yeah.
Or like they're trying too hard or they're making bad decisions or they're immature. Immaturity comes up a lot this season, right? So the fact that they're now able to do this, and I hope that they're able to put together something like this against Columbus. We're going to talk about the second segment. Um, and particularly against Florida, like that's the one we're really, really dreading. But just seeing the fact that there were different people on the score sheet, different people making good plays, it's not just all centered on Patrik Laine and Jake Evans. I mean, Jake Evans obviously playing really well as well, but like, sometimes like when Jake Evans is like your best player on a given night or your second best player on a given night, that's a huge problem. Like he should be
Yeah.
15th best player. They should all be good and he should still be good, but they should all be better than that, right?
He should be a
So
bonus. He
he sh-
shouldn't be the
yeah,
the thing that drags them to wins. He should be,
yeah,
"Hey, that's nice. It's Jake
yeah,
Evans."
yeah. He's like a really nice lemon pesto that you put on your lobster ravioli, right? Like the rest of them need to be the ravioli. Uh, so I really, really, like that like last night's Detroit game and I watched it on a delay after like a massive road trip. So I was a little bit tired and I had some trouble kind of believing what I was seeing. But we are running out of time, so I want to like quickly switch gears. What did you think about Carrier?
He's come as advertised, right? Good skater. He definitely does seem a little small out there, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially standing next to Caden Gooley, like
Mhm.
he looks small, but good first pass. He's not bothered by larger players, bearing down on him in the corner. I thought that he has come as advertised, and I think the largest benefit we will get from this is that Caden Gooley gets to play the left side every night. I
Yes.
think that to me is what mattered the most in all of this. Was that Caden Gooley, who has, not so subtly said he doesn't really love playing the right side. You know,
And we see it. He is better on the left side. Like
of course he is.
he's like, exponentially, not like marginally, exponentially better on
Yeah.
the left side.
Yeah, he's a different guy. So to
Yeah.
me, like that was worth the price of and they got a steady, solid veteran presence for a player who just had kind of played himself out of contention of
Yeah.
playing for this team in the long term. Now, I will say I watched Nashville's game Saturday afternoon. Justin Barron did not play in that game. Don't really know if he's going to have an easy time getting into the lineup there as well, but that's Nashville's problem to figure out, not mine.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like I want to be very clear, is I'm not calling Justin Barron this, but with Carrier out there, it looked less like the defense was a black hole, right?
Yeah,
A black hole of pessimism, a black hole of hopelessness. I'm obviously exaggerating, right? Like all of these players, like there's a lot of growth there, and we talked a lot about Jack Eye being consistent, etc. Like Lane Hudson is such a bright spot, but it just elevated the defense as a whole, right? And again, it is very much largely due to the fact that Caden Gooley's playing on the right side. On the correct side for him. I keep saying right side, but you know what I mean.
sure.
On his strong side, we're gonna say, right? But like it improves everything overall. And it just gives me so much hope. And I know, this is a 3-win week, 4-win week,
3.
3-win week. We have yes, because we just talked about before we started recording that if they won the Columbus game, it'll be the first time that they win 4 in a row since forever. All right. Anything else that jump out at you? Any turning points? Any players of the week before we move into our recap, our forecast?
Yeah, I'll throw some numbers at you that I pulled up. Power play, 5 for 13 on the week, 38%. I mean, Patrik Laine had 5 goals. Those were all 5 of them. Like, that was incredible. Penalty kill was perfect, 13 for 13. They did not give up a power play goal this week. They scored a shorthanded goal against Detroit, so their penalty kill was +1 this week. That's crazy. To get that out of this team is really, really strong. They're undefeated when Patrik Laine scores a goal. They're 6-3 since Laine got here. Um,
Wow.
it's kind of being, not being talked about a ton, but since he got here, things have been a lot better. Who would have thought that once the Canadiens got the lineup they intended on playing the season with, everything goes kind of well.
Yeah.
They now have their second win of the season when giving up the first goal. And now they have 4 wins when they trail at any point. They trailed in both of those Detroit games at some point and ended up winning both of them. So I hope that this week does bring them a little bit of confidence in that when they are down in a game, they are not out.
Yes.
Your point scorers for the week, your leading scorers, Laine 5 goals. Hudson had 5 assists this week. Very quietly put together a five assist in 3-game week. Suzuki 4 points, Caulfield and a bunch of others tied at 3. Montembeault 928 this week, all 3 starts. Caden Primo, it looks like it's over there.
We're going to talk about that in our next segment for sure.
I think we're going to have to. My star of the week is obviously Patrik Laine, but the honorable mention to me is Jake Evans. He was incredible.
Mm-hmm. I can't disagree with any of that. The turning point of the week for me was the Justin Barron trade, simply because the Montreal Canadiens looked at this lineup, said, we have a chance to turn this around. We do need to get this guy going. We are being unfair to him. Let's get him the person that he deserves to play with. So Goulet Nation should be happy. And I think that to me was the big turning point, was the Canadiens are showing that they're serious about giving everyone the opportunity to succeed as much as possible. The Canadiens should be motivated by that, because they are going to need it desperately. The dreaded Florida series, the post-holiday series, is coming up, or I'm going to call it in the in-between holiday series. Stick around, because we still have to talk about our contest. We have to tell you about our holiday schedule and so much more. And all of that is coming up in just one moment. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. You heard that right. I said 1,000 times your money. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. All right. So before we get into our weekly forecast, let's really quickly recap. Not recap. Bring up again, whatever it is. Re up our contest. And we will be running this. Our deadline is 11:59 p.m. on Christmas Day. So, and that's Eastern time. So as long as we receive your entry at by 11:59 on Christmas Day at Eastern time, you will be eligible for entry into winning Ian's precious 13 by 11 signed Carey Price picture. It is authentic. It is stunning. Carey Price is one of the best players to ever play this game. You want that signed picture, and all you have to do is either send us a screenshot of your Spotify Wrapped or equivalent of your podcast addict showing that we were in your top 5 listens this year, or you can also send us a screenshot of a review you left us on any podcast app. We've gotten a couple of great ones. We're very, very grateful for your support. We're really, really privileged to have your time, and we wanted to reward all you guys. So as long as we receive your entry by 11:59 p.m. on the 25th Eastern time, we will be entering you all into a contest. The draw will take place next week, and we will do it transparently. So we'll make sure that you've all been confirmed entry, et cetera, and then we'll do the draw. And you definitely want to do that, and we really, really appreciate all of you. All right, let's talk about the weekly forecast. First, our forecast. We are going to be, obviously, you're listening to this on Monday. We have our Tuesday after the Columbus game episode, and then we're dropping a mailbag on Friday. So we're taking a couple of days off for the holidays, as all of you should be doing as well, just to get some rest, et cetera, et cetera. And on Friday, we have a mailbag. So we're missing 2 episodes this week, but we will be back on Friday. Ian, what's on tap for this week?
All right, another 3 games. Very odd schedule, though. We start with one on Monday, and we don't play again until Saturday. This is another one of those holiday weeks. The back-to-back, of course, the Florida trip, usually in between Christmas and New Year's. it's something that I think the Canadiens dread just about every year. They just don't play well. But we have to get through Columbus first. Montreal in Columbus on Monday. Columbus is 13, 15, and 6 for 32 points, 8th in the Metro, 24th in the NHL. Montreal can pass the Columbus Blue Jackets in the standings with a regulation win in that one. Maybe I think even just with any kind of win, honestly, but regulation win would be the clearest way to get past them. This is the season finale between Montreal and Columbus. Montreal won the first two, 5-1, and a 4-3 overtime win. Columbus is coming off a loss on Saturday to Philadelphia. They blew several leads in that game and then lost in overtime. Montreal's had Columbus's number for the last few years now. Montreal's just kind of crushed that team. This is their last opportunity to play each other for a while. I would expect we're going to see a Columbus team that comes out a little fired up and doesn't want to get swept. They want to, it'll be a moral victory for them to come out against a team like Montreal, who they probably look at as one of their peers, right? That Montreal and Columbus are supposed to be, sort of in the same boat right now. I'm looking at Kirill Marchenko, 34 points in 34 games. He's been incredible for Columbus. I watched the overtime against Philadelphia, which they unfortunately lost that one, but Kirill Marchenko was incredible. Last point per game player in Columbus, Patrik Laine. He had 56 and 56 and 21-22. So, they haven't had, someone who could provide point per game offense in a long time. Kirill Marchenko looks like he might be that guy. Goaltending. Let's talk about goaltending, Laura, because we kind of touched on it in the first segment, but is it Primover? It seems like it's Primover.
It is Primover. The second that they decided to play Samuel Montembeault all 3 games this week, despite the crazy schedule, game on, I think it was Tuesday and then nothing until Friday and Saturday, back-to-back home and home. With travel, they played him 2 nights in a row. They do not trust Caden Primo. The writing's on the wall. Unfortunately, what they have also done by doing this is given away any kind of leverage that they had. I think, Primo with his plate had kind of taken away most of it. But now, everyone knows the Canadiens need a backup goaltender. They desperately do. And, we don't know where it's coming from. We don't necessarily think they want to mess with Laval as well as mess with Dobich's development, especially since Laval's doing really well overall. We talked to Scott Matla last week. If you missed that episode, please go back and check it out. I think that they're going to want to pick someone up off waivers. There is a roster freeze right now, obviously, so we know that it's not happening anytime soon. In the next couple of days, but it's the writing's on the wall. Everything, it is Primover. And the thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is, are they going to do this against Florida and Tampa as well? And that to me is a little bit cruel to both goaltenders. And I think that they should be playing Primo in Tampa. Just because Samuel Montembeault needs a rest. This man is going to burn out.
My bold thought, maybe not so bold, I don't think Primo makes it to that series. I think because the holiday roster freeze will end on the 28th, I think. I think by that point, and I think they will have played Tampa, I think that series starts after that. I think they're going to waive him and call up Dobich. I think that's what we're looking at here. I don't think there's another option on the market for them to acquire, and I think that they're kind of just fed up with what they're watching. So I think it's Dobich time in Montreal, but we will see when we get there. We do have 2 more games to cover very quickly here. At Florida, Florida's 21-11-2 for 44 points, 2nd in the Atlantic, 6th in the NHL. They kicked Montreal's butt last year. Montreal went 1-2-1 against them. A 5-1 loss, a 4-1 loss, a 4-3 shootout loss, and a 5-3 win. Reinhart, Tkachuk, and Barkov all over point per game players. They're surviving sub-average goaltending. Both Knight and Bobrovsky are under 900. They have the 5th best power play in the NHL at 26.9%. They have 3 straight wins. That game to me is my key to the game for that one is just keep it close. I don't have a lot of hope for that one.
Mine is don't get crushed too badly.
Yeah. Score more than once, I think would be cool.
And don't allow more than 6 goals.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Heading into Tampa the following day, back-to-back games, both afternoon games. Tampa's 18-10-2 for 38 points, 4th in the Atlantic, 16th in the NHL. They're like the bottom of the playoff picture right now in the NHL. They're like
As
right on the
expected.
cusp.
Yeah.
Right.
As
There are
expected.
a lot of new parts there. They moved on from Stamkos. They added Gensel. They've had to kind of relearn how to play as a unit without Steven Stamkos there. Montreal was 0-3-1 against Tampa last year, a 5-3 loss, a 4-3 loss, a 4-3 shootout loss, and a 7-4 loss to end the season against the Lightning. Kucherov, 49 points in 28 games, point 38 in 26. Hagel, 37-30. Gensel, 33-30. Those are all over point per game players for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are kind of just a murderer's row of offensive talent. Vasilevsky's a 9-11 and a 238 and it has 2 shutouts as well. Their power play 27th, or I should say third in the league, 27.7%. Penalty kill is 16th. For me, protect the puck. You cannot give the puck away against this team, and capitalize on your power play chances, because that penalty kill is pretty much the only vulnerable spot on this roster. If you're looking for the hole in the Death Star that you have to shoot at, that's like, very small, and you have a very low opportunity of doing it, it's on the power play. You need to capitalize and beat them on the power play.
My keys to this game is try to contain Kucherov as much as possible. He definitely is in Montreal's heads. He's in Montreal fans' heads. He's in Montreal's heads. He does really well against our team. And Braden Point, honestly, like that guy, why does he score so many? Like he was supposed to be a third liner,
Yeah.
that was the projection for him. Like, why is he so good? Those two players, you cannot give them too much rope. They will score multiple goals against you in a game.
Yep. No question.
That's the big thing. All right. So that's it for our weekly forecast. We're gonna, cross our fingers and sacrifice whatever to the hockey gods and hope that the Canadiens do not undo this week's worth of progress in the immediate following week. In the meantime, we do have a couple of updates about Matvei Michkov that should settle the debate in Montreal, and that's coming up in just one moment. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a win. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. You can always, they have so many different kinds of prop bets, and you can always bet on hockey as well with FanDuel. All you have to do is visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and us. All right. Quick reminder that we are on our holiday schedule. That's why you see me in my holiday outfit. I am, we will be here on our Monday episode or Tuesday episode, and we will be back for Mailbag Friday. So just a real quick reminder that we will not be dropping an episode on Christmas Day or Boxing Day. We are taking a little bit of time off. All right. Ian, Elliot Friedman did some reporting, as he does, and he's a reliable source for information. And I think this is something that Montreal fans do not want to hear, but they need to hear. And we need to put that Matvei Michkov conversation to rest. When the Montreal Canadiens picked David Reinbacher at 5th overall, everybody criticized them, including us. I am on the record for picking Reinbacher at 5th when somebody like Matvei Michkov was available. Turns out they probably know a lot more than we did at the time.
Yeah, it turns out Michkov wasn't as available as we thought. So on the 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliot Friedman was talking about, I think he was talking about Montreal going to Russia to see Ivan Demidov. And sort of as an aside, and it sort of sounded like something, and I'm speculating here, it sounded like something that's been bothering him for a while about the way that Canadiens fans have reacted to the Michkov pick. But I'll read his quote verbatim here. There are people who hammer Montreal for not taking Michkov. He wanted to go to Philadelphia. We have to get off this. Michkov, he worked it and he got himself to Philly. It seems like Michkov had one team that he wanted to go to. It seems like he wanted to go to Philadelphia, and that, he probably told other teams, like, I'm trying to get to Philadelphia. If you pick me, I will stay in the KHL. I don't know that part's true, but that's always the leverage that they have, right? That was the fear going around the league, was that he wouldn't come over. I don't know if that was necessarily true. I know there are probably some people who say, like, well, they should have picked him anyway and then tried to convince him. Like, yeah, that worked well for Eric Lindros, right? Like, that worked well in the past. It never works. Like, if they don't want to be here, they're not going to be here. Um, it's nice closure to get that. Like, look, it's over. Like, we cannot. I'm not going to bring this up all the time. There's a certain subset of fans who have made it their personality to be very angry about the Michkov pass. And to me, like, the moment I got over that was the following draft when they picked Demidov, because that righted that wrong to me, and now I'm over it. Right? I don't know, how do you feel hearing this news from Elliot Friedman that he wasn't going to come here?
I'm very relieved because it means we can stop talking about it. I too criticize the Montreal Canadiens. I will go on the record as, saying that, but knowing that the Canadiens probably realized that the opportunity for them to draft that forward that was going to be an impact, that was going to have an impact, was going to come the following year. And that's probably when they started focusing on Demidov, right? Like, they talked about how they were hoping that this is how it would play out when they picked David Reinbacher, right? So when they're having those conversations with Michkov leading up to last year's draft, having that conversation, understanding that this is a long shot. This is a player that will not come here early enough to start developing with this team, with this core. Let's focus on something else. They picked, they're like, all right, let's pick a solid defenseman, because that's also an identified need for the Montreal Canadiens. You can't just have a lineup of scoring forwards. You need depth in the lineup if you're going to be perennial contender.
Yeah. And I see a lot of the frustration from Canadiens fans. You look at the rookie scoring race, and if they had picked Michkov, it's quite possible, if not entirely likely, that they would have number 1 and number 2 in the rookie race, with Michkov leading the way and Lane Hudson right behind him. So I get it. I understand the frustration of watching this guy that Montreal had a shot at going off. And we owe it, like, that's the thing for me. Like, when they passed on Michkov, I was not one of the people who was saying, well, he was, he was never going to come over to the NHL anyway, so I'm not worried about it. He was always going to be here. He was always going to be good. He was always going to be here because he clearly played his way to the team he wanted to play on. And I know there are a lot of people who are saying, like, well, that's not in the spirit of the draft. Who cares? Who cares? If a player can do this, it means they're good enough to do it. You know who's not going to do that? Like Jake Evans getting picked in the 7th round. No, I'm not coming to play for you. Well, then I guess you're going to go to the KHL. You're going to go play somewhere else, right? Like, Michkov is good enough to be able to do something like that. These rookies, these young players, they don't have a lot of leverage early on in their careers, especially at the draft. The draft is a very, not to go full union here, but the draft is a very anti-labor practice. Like, the draft is very bad for, like, the idea of you should be able to work wherever you want. That you can't in the NHL if you go through the draft system. Michkov found, maybe Philly wasn't the only team he wanted to go to, but it was the only team within that range that would have been able to pick him. Because, I mean, look around. Like, it was either like Philly or Montreal. And that was really it. Like, oh, is he going to go to Arizona? No, he was never going to go to Arizona. Like, Nashville, maybe, but probably not. Like, he wanted Philly. And I can see why. Philly's building something really cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I get why he would want to be there. Wanting to play for John Tortorella is a little weird, but that seems
it's crazy.
It seems to kind of be working out. Like, they had one tiff earlier, but, like, I think Michkov's just too good for Torts to, like, bench. So yeah. I think he's kind of the Torts antidote in that I'll just score a bunch and he won't be able to sit me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ian, do you want to give the answer for last week's trivia? And then I have a question. It's a trivia question. It's a relatively easy one, though, I think.
Gotcha. Okay, so our question last week when we had Scott on was these two people, a former Montreal Canadiens player and a current Montreal Canadiens prospect, share a birthday with Scott Matlow, which was on Friday. The answer to that was the former player was Andrei Markov. Eagle-eyed viewers might have been able to see that Scott was wearing an Andrei Markov KHL jersey, so he was kind of throwing in the hint himself. And the prospect was one we talked about last week in Bogdan Konyushkov. So Scott came through for us with that question, so appreciate you. So the answers were Markov and Konyushkov, 2 Russian defensemen, believe it or not. So
I believe somebody got Markov, but I don't think anyone got both.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my understanding when I was checking all our comments. All right, the trivia question. So if you'll notice, my co-host makes trivia questions topical. This is not a topical question. It's just somebody that I thought of. So name this player. Career trajectory in the NHL. Starts with Washington, then Boston, then Pittsburgh, then Ottawa, then Dallas, then Montreal. I'll say that again. Starts with Washington, Boston, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Dallas, Montreal. Name that player. That is our trivia for tomorrow. And then we will be taking a trivia break for our mailbag episode, which is coming up on Friday. In the meantime, make sure you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Do not forget our contest. It is running until 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Christmas Day on the 25th. And then we will be making that draw next week. You can email us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You will find us all over social media at Locked On Canadiens. We're on Blue Sky. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. You can DM us your contest entries or questions on Instagram. And again, you can also leave them in the YouTube comments. You can find my co-host on social media at Maybe It's Ian. You will find me at The Active Stick. Subscribe, rate, tell your friends, and we will see you all tomorrow.